Mongols podcast. I am Kevin. With me is Josh. I always feel I'm already going off the rails in the intro, but I always last time I did the intro, I said Kevin, and I feel like everyone always refers to me as Kev. But I can't really. I don't know. It's weird to just call myself by a nickname, right? And do an intro. I'm Kev. I don't
Are
know.
you like Kev across the board for like more than just family, or is it really just like
It's
Mike
really just
and
Mike.
us?
Yeah.
Okay,
So it just feels
interesting,
weird.
interesting.
Yeah, to say Kev. But Josh, you're in studio. How's I honestly don't know how long it's been, but it feels like it's been some time.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was on a mini vacation last week. So we originally planned like, oh, we're just going to do like a staycation. Like both of us called off, me and Liz, and then realized like, oh, we have some time off. I could go to Columbus to go watch the crew. So we like planned that all around that, and like, so yeah, I ended up going to Columbus over the weekend with a large contingent of Pittsburgh soccer fans. So it was, I think like half of us were crew fans and the other half were Toronto fans because it was the crew were playing Toronto.
Right.
And so shout out to Mike Kendrick for or Mike Chris Kendrick for planning it, and like he was able to get us all, he has season tickets with the crew, so he was able to talk to his rep and get us like a whole row of seats essentially. So
Nice.
I think there was like, I want to say like 16 of us or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but there was a lot of us. And so end up checking out the stadium. That's my first time actually being at the new Crew Stadium, uh, lower.com stadium or whatever it's called. But it was pretty cool. I really like that stadium. Did not stand in the Nordeca, the supporters section, because since we did have a lot of Toronto fans, would have been a bad idea.
Yeah.
And just not allowed. So we were on the opposite end as the Nordeca, and so being able to stay on that side, watch the game, uh, and kind of like just see them in action. It was a lot of fun, like the supporters group as well as the obviously the team, and the crew won 2-0, so that was also fun to watch.
Nice. I
For
was gonna
half
say
of us.
we'll talk about the Hounds eventually here in a bit, but I was gonna keep the topic on the crew for a second. I mean, short of crashing out of the Open Cup, I don't really know. I don't know how they're doing this year. How's the crew doing
Oh,
this
they're
year?
doing pretty good. I think they're in like fourth or fifth place in the league, at least in the East. So not terrible, but not like fantastic. It was funny because don't know how many people know, but the Steel Army, actually, we started working with a company that's in Columbus to make our supporters equipment, like the shirts, the possibly we might work out something with them for scarves next year. Um, our hats, like all that stuff is coming from Supporter Supply Company, and the guy who started it, all the people who work there are all giant Columbus Crew fans and like involved with the Columbus Crew and all that kind of stuff. So we met up with Morgan Hughes, and they had like a whole booth there for Supporter Supply and all their stuff, crew stuff. And so it was kind of funny. As soon as I walked up, of course we started talking about the Open Cup game and how much fun it was to have them print our Fort Highmark shirts, since that was the tifo we used for the crew. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this was great, a lot of fun. Really glad we could do that for you guys.
Yeah. Went over there and kicked the tires, made sure everything was appropriate, and you're happy with everything.
Bought
Nice.
a crew shirt from them, so that way I have my Supporter Supply merch for the Columbus Crew. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a great trip, a lot of fun.
Nice. All right. So getting back into the Hounds. I mean, a lot still going our way. So we will in this episode we'll recap our 4-3 win over Hartford midweek, and then we'll also talk about the draw that we had with San Antonio. I'm gonna start. Well, here, let's get this out of the way. I'll say it again and I'll pause. Okay, so we'll talk about our 4-3 win over Hartford. Okay, and but I want to start off with a graphic because why not? It's my show as far as I'm concerned. But so we're talking about 2 games this week. 1 win, 1 draw. Where does that put us in the Eastern standings? We are still top. 28 games played, 51 points on the board. Tampa still behind us in second with 25 games played, so they have 3 games in hand with 47 points. So Tampa's still in control of their own destiny here, and if they win their games in hand, then they leapfrog us. Not even if they win their games in hand. I think they can if they win 2, lose 1, win 1, draw 2. I think, yeah, because they probably beat us on. Although I don't know. Well, I can't remember off the top of my head the
They do
head to
not.
head.
They do
Yeah,
not beat us on head to head.
right. That's right.
So yeah.
Cool. So, but I mean, we get a little bit of distance between us and Charleston, and then it's a bit of a gap between third and fourth between Charleston and Louisville. So, I mean, we're chipping away. There's not a ton of games left. What, 7-ish? Sure. So,
I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but that sounds correct.
Yeah. But let's start and not get ahead of ourselves. I guess while I have this up too, I know keeping an eye on Steel Army X tweets, whatever. I know there's certain combinations of results. I think this week that guarantee our playoff spot could happen this week. I forget the permutations and combinations and all that stuff. But I think we're potentially 1 week away from mathematically ensuring our place in the playoff. I don't, anecdotally, it's obviously not in doubt. Now the question is whether or not it's the fight for first, as far as I'm concerned. And the fight for us finishing above San Antonio and Sacramento out in the West, which I think is still within our control, especially with the draw against San Antonio this past weekend, which we will get to in the second half of the show. But first, the game of the century? No, that's not true. I mean, it's probably not even the best game this year for the for the Riverhounds, but it was exciting. So we go to Hartford midweek on a Wednesday. And it's a 7-goal thriller. The Hounds go 3 goals up. All of this is easy. The game's over. Everything's done. Hartford are dead last in the Eastern Conference. And then Hartford all of a sudden score 3 goals in 10 minutes.
It was even 10 minutes. Was it like the 78th minute was the first goal, and then the 86th? Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's
yeah. At that point, and then let's make sure we say how the happy, when we get a happy ending, the fairy tale ending. Aubergeon Jr. scores in the 88th minute, and the Hounds end up winning 4-3. Josh, you caught this game live. I did not catch this game live. When you, I don't know. Well, I guess we can talk about the general shape, but first, when Hartford scored 3 goals in a row, what's going through your head? Do you think we're losing it with this game's out of our hands? Emotionally,
honestly, yeah. Like it was bad enough to think that we could be walking out there with a draw, but like that was even on my mind actually after they scored that 3rd goal, because it was so back to back to back. Like I'm just thinking like we're gonna throw this game away. We're about ready to lose to Hartford, like within the last 10 minutes of this game, and just completely blow 3 points out the water, like that we easily had with a 3-goal lead against the worst team in the league. Like I cannot stress how much I was ready to just like throw this game away, just completely be like, nope, this we suck this game. Like, not like obviously.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah. No, so I remember we previewed this game a little bit. I think it was with me and Steve, and I think the lead up to it was, this is, yeah. I mean, we're like, surely we win this game. Yes, of course. Blah blah blah. And so I don't think this was, if you were ever going to predict a win, it was this game. It was, we were arguably one of the best teams in the USL. They're arguably one of the worst teams in the USL. And they've been god awful all year. And all of a sudden we just give them a chance to score 3 goals in 10 minutes. But I do think one of the kind of broader talking points around this game is the character shown by the Hounds to come back and score a goal with what, maybe 8 to 10 minutes left in the game, including stoppage time. Um, when nerves would have been obviously rattled, when substitutions would have already been made. I think that shows a lot of character and mental fortitude and leadership throughout the team, to be away from home, albeit against Hartford, and pull it back. Because I mean, I think if we throw away a game like that, and let's say in your scenario, Hartford do go on and score the fourth goal, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be. Well, I mean, we're throwing in a bunch of hypotheticals because this obviously never happened, thank God. But that could be a huge turning point, not just from a points perspective, but from a mentality perspective of us throwing away something like that when we're 7, 8 games away from the end of the season.
Morale would have been completely different going into that San Antonio game, where if you think about where those guys' heads would be losing to the worst team in the league. I don't even think it's the worst team in the West. This is the worst team in the league. Let's see here. They have 16 points. Nope. Las Vegas. I forgot about how crap Las Vegas is. My bad. They have 14 points.
Jeez,
But with that said, they still have a negative 26 goal differential. So,
insane.
they have the worst goal differential in the league.
Which I think is worse. Let's
Yeah.
be honest. I mean, well, I don't, but anyway. I do want to say so. I want to look at the lineup a little bit. The past capped around these games. Now, I think Steve and I talked about the likelihood of rotation just because of the game stacking up and this being a midweek game and us going away against San Antonio and everything like that. So there's a there was a probability that we were going to see some rotation throughout the team. Particularly though, I'm interested around the the forward line. So Dequa gets a start, and gets 2 goals pretty early. He gets his our first 2 goals in the 13th minute and the 18th minute, which pushes his numbers up higher in the Golden Boot race. Which I think he's at 12 goals on the season now or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up there. But he doesn't start with Showing Me, and so he gets this. So Dequa and Showing Me start up top. And in the previous game before this, which off the top of my head I can't actually recall who we played before. We played Orange County, away at Orange County, and then Dequa and Showing Me start against San Antonio. I just double checking that. I believe that's the case. Yes, that is the case. So I don't know. I started to get into this groove and expectation that, okay, if I want to follow the narrative, that closer to the end of the season, Lilly picks his guys. He picks his starting 11, and then he sticks with them to go into the end of the playoffs. If I wanted to stay with that narrative, I was saying, okay, it's Dequa and Showing Me. That's who he's picking. I mean, we've seen a lot of rotation throughout the season up front. Kizza's come in, Aubergeon Jr. has come in, and I think has made an impact. But the Dequa Showing Me combination didn't really show up until middle of the season, and now it felt like he was sticking it. But maybe it's rotation, maybe it's something else. In this game, Dequa and Kizza start together. Josh, I don't know. What are your thoughts, particularly on the forward kind of pairing and combination? I think another thing maybe that if you want to comment, you could, is around his decision to play 2 clearly identifiable forwards, whereas before, earlier in the season, it's mainly just kind of been 1 with 4 supporting midfields and behind him. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the kind of forward situation going into the playoffs?
So it's hard for me to know why the difference between this lineup and the San Antonio lineup is because of him tinkering, or if it's literally just rotation, because
Yeah.
it was a midweek game going into a weekend game, and both being away and traveling and all that kind of stuff. Like, I kind of feel like this was probably just not indicative of what, if it was a week apart, what the lineups would have been. And I also do think you go in differently when you're playing Hartford, and you know their goal differential, they're not doing so hot, so you kind of just throw the forwards up there and be like, all right, let's put this game away early. And with all intents and purposes, we kind of did. I mean, scoring twice, Deke was scoring both goals within the first 20 minutes. Like, you kind of felt like that strategy worked out, and it was, you know, not a cakewalk, but definitely not the hardest game we've ever
It
played.
felt like it was going to be. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like I remember the announcers made the comment like scoring at will after like I think the second goal. It's just like Hounds are just scoring at will now. It's like okay, sweet. This is gonna be a fun game to watch. Not gonna be stressful game at all. So I do think this was more indicative of the fact that they're playing Hartford, so their strategy was different than playing San Antonio. Obviously, just the change in quality going from San Antonio, who's like tied for first place right now, I think. Or was their first place when this game happened?
Exactly. If they're not tied for first, they're very close with
Uh,
Sacramento.
they are. Yeah, they have Sacramento has 48 points and San Antonio has 48 points.
Got it.
So yeah, which is less than the Hounds. Just keep note of that. Uh, but yeah, the difference there, just in quality of teams, I feel like dictated a difference in strategy, and it paid off. Getting a point, well, going ahead of ourselves, but yeah, getting a point. San Antonio is not anything I'm sad about.
Yeah, and I guess if you want to take the same kind of approach to dissecting, what we think starting lineups will be from here on out. Well, I mean, I guess the other thing to back up a second. I mean, I think I'm pretty, I don't know, wedded to the idea that for whatever reason, I probably need to check my own logic on this, but that I get the sense that Lily's going to find a starting 11 generally that he like. I think we're going to see less rotation as we get closer to the playoffs. I think that's a broad arching thing that I think we've seen patterns with Lily in the past, and I think that's probably what we're going to see again. I think he might still be kind of like situationally flexible enough to chop and change maybe 2 or 3 names based off of who we're playing or based off of what the schedule demands. But similarly, where I think if everyone's healthy and if we have a full week, I'm getting to the point where now I'd be a little bit surprised if it's not Deco and Show Me up top. Similarly, I think, full week's rest, no injuries, I would start to expect both Griffin and Ibarra in the midfield, with the option of, depending on what's happening, Mertz, Forbes, Etu. So we see the alteration from Hartford to San Antonio. Hartford, Forbes gets the start, and in San Antonio, Mertz gets the start, which feels appropriate. Away from home, we might be coming under a little bit more pressure. We need to be a bit more high energy. So Mertz goes in and takes that spot over Kenny. But and of course you have along the back line, that's still a bit of a rotation area where you can chop and change a couple of the center back pairings and options. But generally speaking, Ordonez is going to be there. I think it's probably Dos Santos, if healthy, is probably there, but maybe not. So yeah, I think we're getting closer to the guys that are going to take us over the line here.
We're definitely going to figure this out pretty fast, because at this point, there's no more Wednesday games. There's no midweek games. It's all Saturdays from here on out. There's 3 home games and 3 away games left. It is kind of a bummer that we end the season with 2 away games, but one of those away games is against Detroit, so not too far away, and also not too great of a team this year. So it is one of those things where it's like, could be worse. Although one of those is Tampa Bay, so like that's going to be probably the most important game on the books coming up. Is out of the 6 games left, going up against Tampa to kind of be able to stop them from getting 3 points and us getting 3 points on them, a 6-point swing. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, but all games at this point are important. It's not like any one of these games I'm like, oh, we could lose that one and be fine. It's like, no, like we need all the points we can get if we want to stay above. If we want to be first in the league, we need all these points. As many points as we can get, obviously.
Yeah. Although I do think that Tampa game is really big.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those games where I feel like not just in regards to points, it's in regards to morale and mentality of this team. Like, can we beat the top teams in the league?
Yeah.
And like, if we want to make a playoff run, which we've never done other than 2 games, essentially, we have to be able to beat the likes of Tampa, and this will be a big testament to how that goes. Now we're getting way ahead of ourselves because that's like 5 games down the road, but it's still like that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is, I don't know. I'm looking through our schedule. I'm looking through our past schedule. What I mean, so we beat Tampa right now. We're up on them on the head to head. We haven't lost the. I know Louisville are further down. What, they're fourth? I mean, so not miles away, but we haven't lost to Louisville this year. I can't off the top of my head. I can't remember what our results have been against Charleston. Yeah, we lose to them 3-1. And aren't they the ones who put us in our place at home? No, we beat them.
No, we beat them both times. Charleston, we beat them 3-1. Oh no, you're right. They beat us 3-1, and
Yeah.
then we won 2-0.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, mixed bag there. But I guess before talking about future games here with 6 games left in the season, let's before we move on to San Antonio, anything else to talk about with Hartford?
I mean, other than the fact that this game could have given me a heart attack, the first goal was so silly. I don't know if you get a chance to watch the highlights. Anyone who didn't get to watch the game, it's just bouncing all around, and it's Dequa barely gets that in off of like a header off of the player. Like, it was just ridiculous. It was
Yeah,
like a
what? He's like
pinball.
on the goal line as he heads it in,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. Like,
yeah.
I actually was afraid to celebrate because I'm like, they're probably gonna call like some offside or something like that. Like, I assumed something was wrong. And the second goal wasn't that much more clean because it came off the bar and then it went in. So it wasn't even like it was like a clean shot. Um, so yeah, just the goals in general in this game were silly. And then the fact that they scored so many, someone in Discord, I can't remember who it was, but like uttered the phrase, "We're gonna get Miracle on the Mond," and it's just like the terror in my like, I'm like, no, we cannot be the Harrisburg in this situation. We cannot be
No
winning
one wants to be the
constantly.
Harrisburg.
Yeah, no one ever wants to be Harrisburg. But yeah, like, to go up by 3 and then to score all those goals at the very end there, and let's go up again. It's like, just hold the lead. Time wasting card, well earned by Danny Rovi. Like, just like
Yeah.
get that time wasting card. Sure, everyone just hold the line. It was a crazy game.
I gotta say, I mean, I'm catching the highlights. I tried to watch a bit of the highlights before we started. The Ibarra goal is very clean. It's just it seems too easy, and it probably is.
Oh yeah.
But how we work it out, and then it's a very clean header. And yeah, I mean, and then I mean, the Aubergeon Jr. goal at the end, Jesus, I mean, like that turn and the shot and the upper, yeah, hell of a goal.
Yeah, both of those goals were fantastic, and it was one that man, his goal at the end, it's just like a situation where you just kind of like breathe out, like, oh, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Like, I did not want to lose points to Hartford after being up by 3. It was so embarrassing to think that was going to happen, and yeah, he really saved us.
I feel like
Uh,
he could be on the short end of some stuff here. I don't know. I've been really impressed with Aubergeon
yeah.
Jr. Throughout his time here.
And we had one Steel Army member there, and he reported that they were only on the field after the game for 10 minutes.
That's
I
nothing.
have a theory that there was a plane to catch. I cannot imagine after that game, Bob being like, "Good game, guys." The locker room. Like, either that or like they had strict rules at Hartford to like get the players off the field
Yeah.
for some reason. Because yeah, that's amazing that he was only on the field with them for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think even Lily couldn't hold up a plane, if that's the case. I think they might take off without him. All right, so the Hounds get that win, which was an important win to bounce back from the Orange County loss, to get things back on the right track, and then a big game traveling back out west to San Antonio. Battle of the 2 top teams in the league. At the time, I can't remember if you already gave the answer to this, Josh. I knew you said that right now their level was Sacramento, but at the time before kickoff, I can't remember if San Antonio or Sacramento were ahead. But let's say they were. Let's say San Antonio was ahead. So this was a clash at the top of the East against top of the West, billing it for what could be a, dare I say, playoff final. But and I didn't know what to expect. I've seen some when big sides square off against each other. Sometimes it can be very cagey and no one really wants to make a mistake, so everyone just kind of plays it safe. If you look at a score like 0-0, you might think that might have been the case. However, and I kind of want to preempt this by saying, I mean, like going into this game, especially how we finish. Okay, so we get the win against Hartford, but we let in 3 goals in 10 minutes in the 80th minute. We've been terrible away from home all season. San Antonio is a good side, albeit San Antonio is not great at home. Apparently, I mean they're good. I mean they're top in the Western Conference, but apparently their record's a little bit better away from home than it is home. But I'm not really kind of factoring that into this, and I'm going into this thinking this is not going to end well, and I would have taken a draw immediately before the whistle was blown. But throughout the game, I was impressed. I thought both teams tried to take chances. I think both teams took some risks to try to get forward. I think there were a handful of moments that were kind of like highlight reel worthy. Jamali Waite makes a big save. We get some pretty good chances, but I think there were a good amount of times throughout the game where a team breaks through and then someone just has a really good defensive play, whether it was us or San Antonio. I thought both teams defended actually really well. And so I thought there was a lot of good play from both sides that didn't necessarily lead to a shot on goal. And I thought, I thought it was a really good game, and I was really impressed and proud about how the Hounds handled themselves and in one of the more difficult games we're going to play this season.
I mean, it definitely seemed like they were more on the back foot than San Antonio. Like
Yeah.
there was a lot more the defense had to do for the Hounds than not. Like what was it, shots 10 versus our 4.
Yeah.
And then shots on targets, they had 5 shots on target. It it was like especially watching the highlights over again. It shows some amazing saves, and who got the ball off the line at the very beginning of the game.
I think Ordonez.
Was that Ordonez? Yeah, saved our bacon there.
Yes, but I don't know. It was a slow ball. This wasn't like Ordonez kind of read the play. I think, to their credit, San Antonio makes good play. They, what Waite comes out the challenge, he pokes it around him. I don't know. The ball's traveling pretty slow, and Ordonez has a decent amount of time to get back and clear
He
it.
still has an attacker behind him. Like he was
Sure.
blocking an attacker, so he had to deal with the attacker trying to get the ball, and he has to defend off the attacker and also kick the ball out from getting into the net. So like that could have been easily a goal there after Waite runs forward and gets chipped or whatever. So like it could have happened.
Yeah,
but you're right. It was a pretty arching chip that he had plenty of time to like track that ball. I was more worried about him spending too much time paying attention to the ball and not enough time paying attention to the attacker that was right on his shoulder.
Right.
So yeah, this is one of those games where like definitely cool with the point, but also it was nice to see them able to hold off San Antonio. Like it's
because I was like, would you say our defense has been like? I wouldn't say our defense this year is better than the past 3 years of Riverhounds. You know what I mean? Like I don't think necessarily our defense is our best quality this year. I think we're fine defensively, but I can recall Riverhounds teams in the past where we're just solid in defense.
I think that is more of it's more indicative of the fact that we've had fantastic fantastic defenses in the past that are like league high, like everyone envy of our defense. Uh, this year we have a great defensive team, but it's just not as great as we've had in the past where it's been like above and beyond everyone else defensively. So yeah, I still think we're a good defensive team. Um, and our away record is not terrible. I mean, like it's was it 4-4-6. So it's not like we're terrible away.
It's not terrible, but I guess I
We have
wouldn't
won just
expect
as many
that.
as we've lost away.
Right, but I wouldn't expect that if you're top of the East and like have the most points in the USL. I guess maybe I wouldn't expect that, given that context. You're right; it's not bad.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
on average, I would take that. But I guess when in the position that we're in, I'd be a little surprised with that
Out
record.
of the 4 game or 14 games. That's we got points 10 out of the 14 games we've gone
Yeah,
away. So that's pretty damn good.
yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I somewhat agree. I don't really agree.
See, you're speaking as someone who cheers for teams that are like top of the league constantly. I'm like, wait, we haven't lost every single away game. Doing pretty good, guys. All right, got points more often than
It's
not
just
away.
context. It's just
It's
context, Jeff. That's
context,
all.
yeah,
That's all. That's all I'm looking at.
standards.
I mean, and you make a really good point, kind of defending the goals against numbers. I mean, yeah, right now Tampa has better goals against numbers, but they've also played 3 games fewer than us. So, like, unless
Yeah.
they get 3 clean sheets in their games in hand, we'll likely have the best defensive record in the East. And if you look out west, too, ish the case. We've played 2 more games than any of the top teams in the West, and you have Sacramento has let in 4 less goals than we have, but they've also played 2 less games. So yeah, no, I mean, actually, I'm happy you called me on that because I mean, by the numbers, we're still one of the best, if not the best, defensive teams in the league. I think the other thing, maybe that kind of painted my viewpoint on that one was it. We have a game in us where we just had like we have a bad 20 or something. Hartford being a good
I
example,
was going
but
to say.
but I could like remember that there was that stretch 6 to 7 games ago
Hmm.
where what we lost 2 in a row, maybe even did we lose 3 in a row? I don't know, but we let in like 8 goals in 3 games, and that it felt like that was kind of out of nowhere, and I wonder, I feel like this could be my own kind of negative fan, pessimistic, worrisome view. But I think we have a game like that in us where all of a sudden our heads go and we leak goals.
Well, yeah,
So
we've definitely seen that, and we've also had Bob say as much during press conferences. Him that run of games you were speaking of, like that was his defense of that was like, yeah, I've been saying this the whole time that we
right.
have a lot of things we have to work on. It's just that we've been lucky and the balls bounced our way for those games. So those weaknesses that we have in defense and just as a team as a whole didn't bite us until just now. Like now the ball didn't bounce our way, and the weaknesses were shown clear. So it is a situation where I feel like we've gotten better, and the fact it's kind of funny to say the game we won this week is the game that shows how much still we have to work on.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Yeah.
game we only got 1 point is like a victory as far as
Right.
like what we've been able to work on so far. So yeah, it is interesting that Hartford, despite the fact that we won, is the game that worries me the most out of these 2 games.
You kind of you said something there that I'll bring back up and ask you to dive deeper on. It might have been even like subconscious, but you kind of referred to the San Antonio game as a victory. Do you see it as a victory? Like how that result, that draw against San Antonio? Um, yeah, I don't know. Is that a victory in your mind? Is that kind of like 1.5 points?
Yeah, it's definitely not a victory. Like I'm not saying like that's the best we could have done, and I'm so
Right.
happy. But it's definitely nothing to be ashamed of, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
It's a well earned point on the road against a hard team after you've played midweek. And so like all those factors and considering all those factors, I do feel like this was a point they should be proud of. But it is also still, as we were saying before about Tampa coming up in 3 games or 4 games, this is who we have to be able to beat if we want to actually get a trophy this year for the first time ever. So like it, it's a victory just in that element, I guess, but it's still not good enough if we want to be able to lift a trophy.
Yeah. I should do better with this. I'm gonna butcher this. I'm sorry, but San Antonio striker Ulawasi. I
You think you're right?
close-ish. But I mean, another positive is he's in the running for the Golden Boot this year too, alongside Dikwa, and we held him to not scoring. So that's nice too. But yeah, so I mean that's the San Antonio game. I'm very happy we get out of there with a point. And I think on top of that, you're right, Josh. I mean, you kind of put it, I think, back on track. I think I was probably a little bit overly optimistic about how well of a performance it was. I still think it was a really good performance. To me, I think the stats, it was more even than maybe the stats would have suggested. I thought
That's fair.
we didn't hide in our shell, and it wasn't like we just tried to counter and that was it. I think we tried to take some initiative and create chances for ourselves, which I think in itself is big to show that we had the willingness to like go out there and play rather than just kind of hang in there. And it's lessons learned from Open Cup wins against Columbus and the like. So and New England. So yeah.
Olawasi, he's also looking at the Golden Boot race right now. He's at 14 goals as well as Dikwa, and they're both tied for first.
Nice.
So it's not.
Cicerone and Dixon, they were up there.
Oh, Cicerone has 13 goals. So like
Okay.
Cicerone's like right there,
Right.
below it. And I think actually Nico Brett has 10 goals. I don't see Dixon too close to anything right now.
Maybe I know early in the season Dixon had a couple games where he just like banging them in.
Yeah, right now it's definitely a race with Dikwa, Olawasi, and then Trejo, Cicerone. They both have 13. Trejo plays for Phoenix, and then another Phoenix player. What? 2 Phoenix players? That's not fair. Ortega has 12 goals, and Trejo has 13 goals. That's crazy. Okay, sorry. I obviously don't pay attention to the West at all.
Yeah,
so I'm just like, wait a second, what?
Well, we've talked about both. Let's come full circle again. We'll pull up the table for the Eastern Conference. The win and the draw puts us on 51 points, still clear at the top. I want to take the moment. I mean, you mentioned Nico Brett, you mentioned the Golden Boot race. I don't know, why not? Let's take a little detour down a side road and talk about some of the other teams in the East right now. I think it's pressing. Okay, so let me quickly run through. As of we're recording on Monday, August 28th. As of right now, the table stands as us at the top, then Tampa in second, Charleston in third, Louisville in fourth, Memphis in fifth, Indy in sixth, Birmingham in seventh, Tulsa in eighth for the playoff cutoff. Cutoff. I said it right. And then Miami in ninth, Detroit in 10th, and then Loudoun and Hartford languishing at the bottom of the table. I mean, it's a bit early to do season retrospectives, obviously. But I think checking in with some of the other teams, I want to get back to talking about the Hounds. We are a Hounds podcast. But at the beginning of the season, everyone seemed convinced, myself included, that Birmingham was going to be like a force. Nico Brett's 10 goals, you just laid it out there for Golden Boot or whatever, but Birmingham's now in seventh. They've played 25 games and have 36 points. They have a negative goal differential. Josh, what are I don't know, what stands out to you as you look at the kind of whole table, not just Birmingham? I'm leading you with Birmingham, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Louisville is still a surprise to me. It's so weird not to think of Louisville as like a contender for first place. And they have not shown any signs that they're going to reclaim that mantle as far as the season goes at all.
That's right.
So
Stick the knife in. I like it.
I'm obviously very happy about this, but I'm just still so surprised.
Yeah.
Um, Charleston, I mean, obviously, Hounds trump all, but seeing Charleston doing good is still so makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
I never want to lose to Charleston, especially for the old guard shield stuff. But it is a situation where like having Charleston being one of the OG clubs and having them be so good
Yeah.
makes me so happy. So that's fantastic to see. And then just kind of like not really very many surprises other than maybe Miami, because again, Miami is another team that has been pretty high up in the standings in the last couple seasons. So seeing them below the playoff line right now is very surprising.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
Miami 26 games played, 29 points, so just above a point a game, which yeah, it's not
it's not great.
that's not
It's not
great.
great.
And unfortunately,
Yeah,
we're kind of relying on Miami to get some results for us, right? Not only against
yeah.
Tampa, I think they have a game against Tampa coming up soon, but they might even have one against Charleston too. I'm not sure. Um,
It's definitely a situation where it's that's a little bit surprising, but yeah, it's also kind of like Birmingham, for example, talking about how they're not doing as great as we thought they were going to be doing. It's easy for me to be like, yeah, but they're making the playoffs, they're doing okay. But then I keep on forgetting like how low that bar is right now for the playoffs.
right.
It's ridiculous that the top 8 teams get into the playoffs when there's only 12 teams in the East. Like it's just so stupid. Like
Yeah.
that. I don't know. It should be harder to make the playoffs than being not even average uh in your conference. Like you have to be
Yeah.
above average in the conference, but not in this case. You can be below average and you're
So where do you
still
draw the line? So here, solve the problem of the USL right now, Josh. Right here, right now. What do we do? Is
I
it
mean,
is
the
it
obvious
as
answer
simple
would
as
be
you just move the
six.
lineup, or
I mean, yeah, that's the obvious answer. It's top 6 teams instead of top 8. Like you can't make it an odd number, so it can't be 7 teams. But like I feel like 6 teams would at least feel more normal. Like it would feel like a good place to set the line.
and I think it would also create a bit more drama towards the end of the season because
Yeah,
yeah, you're right. I think teams fighting it out to try to just get in the playoffs when they're mid-table, it feels more appropriate. Whereas yeah, you're right. Now I'm like, ugh, I don't even care if like Detroit or Miami like make it in.
well, it's so the bar's so low. Like Detroit definitely can still get in, and even though they're having a terrible season, doesn't mean like it's like they can still make the playoffs, and that means they can still like get hot in the right moment and
Right.
still win everything. And that's I don't know. I obviously you want the playoffs to mean something, and if every single team pretty much makes the playoffs, it's kind of like, well,
Yeah.
that sucks. Like
Yeah.
it makes being top of the East feel less meaningful, even though obviously I really want top of the East. Like that's the goal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I want top of the East. I want
Top
you
of the
know,
league, actually. Yeah.
well, that's what I mean, and I keep shying away from the language because I can't remember off the top of my head. I know there's a term, like if you finish top of the league, it's you get the blah blah blah. I just don't know what it is.
Like supporter shield is like what I think of,
Right,
but there's not a supporter shield, and I I don't know if there's actually anything considered like that's what I always think of because that's MLS. But yeah, there is a trophy involved if you're top of the league.
right. Well, I mean, all right. So finishing up with looking at the table, the Hounds' next game is against Loudon. What, like a week and a half from now?
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about that game
Why not?
because we're going to talk about next week since it's a bye week for the Hounds.
Wait. Oh,
We don't play next week.
well,
We
I
have a week
know.
off. So
But we
we're
get to
still
do
going to
whatever
do a
we
show
want.
next week, but we're going to I feel like we're probably going to end up doing some listener questions, that kind of stuff, but we're also going to do a preview show of Loudon.
That's fine, but how do you think we're going to do against Loud?
Good. I feel like that should be that's an away game I'm not as
Well, it's a
scared of.
home game, right? Do we have them at Highmark?
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We
Like,
said the same thing about Hartford, Josh.
yeah, and we won
Yeah,
barely.
that's a good point. I don't know. It's weird with Loudon. I will never not have that image in my head. I don't even know who the Loudon player was. I think it might have been a year ago. Maybe it was two. But we had a game where we went away against Loudon, and they were crap, and we were great. And like just some, I don't know, some dude on their team, just like 35 yards into the top corner. And I was like, you
Yeah.
got to be kidding me. And so that's what I just always think about Loudon. Maybe it's the defeatist mentality kind of
We
getting
beat
into me.
them away already this season.
Yeah.
It was only 1-0, but we still beat them away. That was back in May, at the end of May. So like I feel pretty confident in our ability to beat Loudon, at home especially.
Crazy enough, I think this weekend I saw someone walking around Knoxville with a Loudon shirt on. I was like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you here?"
Goodwill find or bought on purpose, like with
Good
intention.
question. It's a good question. I don't know.
You never know.
Never know. All right. Well, I guess we're not talking about Loudon. I mean, it's a good point. We shouldn't.
It's in the outline that I know you're not in right now,
No,
but that
I'm not. Not looking at the outline. I guess yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have no qualms. I feel like we talked about the stuff we wanted to talk about. We're a little short of the hour, but I mean that's okay. Is there anything else off the top of your mind, Josh, that you want to talk about this week?
since we have a little bit of time, the golden glove race
Mm.
is also something that we kind of are still in. Jamali has 9 clean sheets, and believe it or not, Louisville, who I just got done crapping all over, talking about how they're not great this season, they have 11 clean sheets. So right now, they are, was it Oliver Simley is in the lead right now with 11 clean sheets for the Golden Glove. So, and also we're like tied with like 2 other players for 9 clean sheets right now, and then there's like 4 people with 8 clean sheets. So it's a really tight race for us to try to get up there, but we kind of were. I was hoping for a clean sheet against Hartford for us to easily glide past that and get closer to having Jamali Waite be in the running. So it's going to be a little bit harder
I
now.
feel confident about it. I think Waite's having a good. Yeah, I mean, look, he's obviously having a good season.
Yeah.
I know. I think there were. I feel like there's always question marks at the beginning of the season on like who's going to be the number one. I think inevitably Lily chops and changes a little bit around, but yeah, I mean, Waite has definitely made that shirt his own, and pulled up some nice saves against San Antonio. Has a good season. I don't know. What do you think the probability? I mean, I think if you look at the last 6 games that we have,
I feel like Loudon will be a big telling moment. Like if we don't get a clean sheet against Loudon, I think it's a lot harder at that point for him to try to gain any momentum in getting past 11. Because then we have Miami, which Miami's not doing great, but they're not a terrible team, and it's away, so away games are a little bit less likely, obviously, for the clean sheet. New Mexico is an okay team in the West. Now they are traveling all the way from the West, so like maybe hopefully they're a little bit more tired. We can get a clean sheet there, and it's at home, so that's great for us. Tulsa isn't doing terrible, and then obviously Tampa Bay Rowdies are a decent team to say the least, and it is away for us. So that one I'm not exactly confident we're going to get a clean sheet. Even the last game of the season is in Detroit away. That's a very possible game to get a clean sheet, but playing in Detroit is never easy. So it's not like it's a gimme for a clean sheet.
I mean, generally speaking, our home games have been pretty solid with
Yeah.
like clean sheet potential.
But we only have 3 left, and we would need all 3 of those to be clean sheets for him to even get above 11. And that's assuming that Louis doesn't get a clean sheet at all for the last couple games. Right. So
yeah, it's gonna be
tough. I think it's a pretty outside chance. that he's able to get Golden Glove. I obviously Golden Boot. That's a different situation. Being tied right now with 14 goals, Dikwa has a pretty strong chance of making it happen.
I will say, yeah, and I mean, I don't know. You laid it out there. I think in my head, well, I mean, okay, I'm tipping or I'm cheating a bit here because I was looking at the schedule 3 games ago. Our home and away kind of distribution looked a lot different. Um, but had such an in my head like, oh man, the end of the season is going to suck. We had so many home games throughout the summer, and it's just going to be away, 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 away. It's kind of nice to find ourselves with 6 games to go and having equal home games and away games. I'm okay with that, especially with some of those away games being Eastern Conference teams and some of those Western Conference games being home games.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like is the fact that we ended 2 away games in a row.
Yeah.
Mostly just because at that point, those last 2 games is when you find out, like, you really start to get solidified, like, what points do we absolutely need to get? And that's a lot of pressure to be like, okay, we need at least 2 points out of these 2 games, and like you're away for both of them. It does help that Detroit's the last one. I know I feel like I'm crapping on Detroit right now, but it's just the fact that they are a lower, in the table team. That
I thought you were going to say a lower quality team.
I was, right. But I stopped myself. I rose above. But yeah, so that is nice that it's the last game. But having Tampa being the other one of those 2 games is not great.
Yeah,
so,
it's tough.
Yeah.
I guess some final points here to wrap up. I mean, I didn't really appreciate, the 3 games, if you want to include Orange County over the past 2 weeks that we've talked about. I mean, this was a pretty tough. Well, sure, I'll say it was a pretty tough, like away stretch where we had three away games in a row. One of them being a midweek game. 2 of them being against Western Conference teams. If I would have, 4 points from it, I would say is not terrible. It obviously wasn't season altering because we still find ourselves first in the East. I think with a pretty good outlook on still claiming first in the East coming the end of the season. So having three away games in a row, given the conditions that they were, 4 points, it's not terrible, is it?
If I was an other team supporter and looking at the Hounds schedule, I would have expected this was going to be the moment that took us out of first place.
Yeah.
That this run right here that we just had, 3 away games against 2 West Coast teams. That's a lot of travel. That's a lot, and there's some quality there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't say too much about the Hartford game, but it's just the fact that you do have another away game. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. That was the moment for us to drop points, the most points. And the fact that we only dropped 2 points out of those 3 games, not too shabby. I feel like the Hounds should be pretty proud of that, even though they let Hartford score 3 times against them in like 10 minutes.
As far as I'm concerned, in 3 weeks' time, I'm just going to look back on the schedule and see 3 points there and just forget anything ever happened. So,
Hartford is still Fraudford. That's all that matters.
Exactly. And, and Orange County do us a favor, I think, after we play them and they get a win against Charleston. So, yeah, I think that scenario kind of helped a lot too. I don't know. I was going to ask for one more prediction, but we don't need to do that. I think it's fine. I think we're good. All right, well, let's wrap up the show. I mean, I don't have my normal outro, but I'll just say, next week we might get a different rotation back in. I think Mike might be back on the show. I know Steve was kind of in and out. We'll see if we can get Steve back on the show. But big stretch coming in here. We won't have a game to talk about next week, but we'll do some recapping. We'll take some questions. We'll see what we can do with that. I mentioned it last time. Go over and check out bgn.fm. Still a lot of content over there, written by supporters and fans of teams throughout the league. Otherwise, I don't know. Check out our socials. Oh, we need to talk about Pick'em real quick, because there's some real stuff on the line there. As far as the graphic tells me, which I believe in Mike that he updated this because I certainly didn't. Mike is up top at the top, but he can't win in Pick'em with 26 points. And then Michael Finn is the real leader with 24 points. And then Laura Ellen with 23 points. Keaton Liebengood with 23 points. So tight race at the top between Michael Finn and Keaton Liebengood. I'm sitting at 21 points, and then Devin Pale with 19 points. Devin's still within striking distance. Gets a couple, results to bounce their way, and never know what can happen. Josh, I don't know how many points you're on, but I'm sure you're fine. I'm sure you're good.
I'm probably not, because I always forget to actually put in my prediction unless I'm on the show.
Too. I know.
So if I'm not on the show, I don't have a prediction. So I've missed like 3 games, I think.
Your points per guess is probably pretty good.
It's probably fine. It's probably fine.
It's probably fine. So, and as a reminder, whoever wins this year of Pick'em will get 2 free season tickets for next year
in the sports section where you should be.
Yeah. So Michael Finn, Keaton Liebengood, Devin Pale, maybe some other people, bumping around 19 or 18 points. Good luck. Get your picks in for the rest of the year. You got 6 more. I don't know if we're doing this for playoffs. I think we might be. We'll make it clear. Once we get close.
Mike will tell us.
Yeah. Mike will tell us. Otherwise, I think that's it for us. I get to do Mike's outro here. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
Later.